Good evening and welcome to what is another episode of Young Climber. We have definitely returned, only bigger and better. You know, we cover many professions and some the same, but what I always say is the story is definitely different. And joining us with a completely different story today, we do have psychologist Nokunceda Myeni, who joins us, to talk about her journeying through the profession of psychology and of course the corporates that she has helped and how she plans to take Lucido to greater heights. Nokunceda, welcome to Young Climber.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to talk to you. Maybe you can just take me up today, but it's more about you than it is about me. Can I just take you back to you growing up and most importantly in a single parented household with a very big extended family? How was that for you and how did it influence the person that you are today?
I think growing up in that environment taught me a lot about collective responsibility because my mother had me fairly young, but her siblings stepped up to the adage, it takes a village, really rang true in my experience.
Yeah.
I remember how my family had inculcated within me different skills. I don't think they were aware of it, but my reading skill came from just one particular discussion that we had as a family. This one time, my uncles and aunts were talking about the experience of reading George Orwell's Animal Farm.
Yes.
And everybody broke out in song, and Best of England. And I didn't know what that was. So I felt left out. And the first thing I did after that discussion, I went rummaged through our book collection and I found the book, read it cover to cover at grade 5. And by the time that I got to read it in an academic setting in Form 2, I was really very well clued up on the book. So I think those are just some of the things that I learned from growing up in that environment.
And now, Nceda, can we just speak about your experiences at primary school and how they laid a foundation for your lifelong commitment to quality education and just the community at large?
My mother prioritized education very early on. She made sure that I got the best foundation. I went to Baha'i preschool. As much as she was not financially stable in that way, but she made means to make sure that I get a solid foundation with my preschool as well as my primary education. And to supplement that, she bought me a lot of books. I think the Peter and Jane, the Ladybug series, the Peter and Jane, I had a number of those books laying around for me to read. But more than anything, I think being exposed to primary school life, I got to experience the uniformity that education brings. We come from different backgrounds, but we all wore the same uniform, and it just brought about the sense of community that sparked my interest in giving back at a later on stage in life, because you get to really appreciate what it means when they say society is made up of interdependent parts that work together in harmony to make sure that society thrives.
So I'm guessing that's where everything then stemmed from. Or did you know at that time, a psychologist, or was it even a career for you that you might have considered?
Not at all. It never crossed my mind at all.
Yeah.
I only got to think of psychology after graduating high school. Prior to that, the dream and the goal was always architecture. I was in, I fought for my space in the design and technology class. I think we were just about 4 of us. There were 3 that were initially admitted into the class. I was left out for, I think, reasons of trying to balance out numbers with the different other streams of education that were there. But I fought tooth and nail to make sure that I get my space there. And all along the dream was architecture. Psychology, never in a million years at that time.
But now we speak about change and adapting to change. You transitioned from Northern Hoho to the cultural mix of, Cap Boys High School in the city of Mbabane. Can you just talk about that transition for you and the spirit of adaptation that it brought into your life?
It was a whoa moment. Like the culture shock hit you so fast in your face, like a gush of wind. From the lingo, the vocab that my peers were using, It was so vastly different from what I was used to growing up at Northern Hoho, because I finished my primary education at Myeni Primary School. It's the rurals, the bundus of well, not the super bundus, but hey, So it took a lot to try and find stability within the change that was now engulfing me around. I remember in one time in geography class, we were asked to mention our mnemonic devices for how we memorize the chronological sequencing of the planets, of the 9 planets.
Yeah.
So there I was, young girl from the Bundus, and I said my mnemonic device was Meve Emachusa Oneplu. So that's just how. And everybody just laughed. Even the geography teacher was taken aback by it because it's like, huh? Can you just repeat it? No, actually stand up and write it on the board for us. And it made sense. But then he asked that the rest of the class mentioned their own. Everybody broke out and said, girl, I knew nothing of that. But as much as it was such a funny experience, but I've never been shy of keeping true to my roots and also at the same time embracing the new change. As someone who's also an avid reader, I made sure that I exposed myself to different cultures, to different environments way before I even step into them. So the transition and the change did come very difficult for me at that time.
And I like that you speak so fondly, about reading, because I feel like maybe that is where you gained your confidence to then speak. Because if you read, you can definitely then speak. And being the youngest member of our national debate team, how did that help you, shape your communication skills and ensure that you boost your confidence?
So remember how I said it was a culture shock for me to move from the Bundes, and I got to experience a lot of different sports at high school. There was volleyball, I did that. Netball, I was there. Choral music, I was there, and then debating. And I think I was just trying to find my place and find my niche. Debating came to me in Form 2, joined it, and then miraculously in the very same year I managed to make the national team. I always attribute debating to helping me find my voice, both literally and figuratively. I had a problem with projecting my voice. I was soft-spoken. I didn't realize that, but I suppose that's why community is there. People are there to keep you sharp, and I didn't realize that I couldn't project my voice as clearly. So debating helped me to project my voice and to make sure that I'm audible enough and I communicate my ideas in a way that other people can understand it. It also helped me learn a very important skill in communication, which is active listening, because you have to listen actively so that you know when you rebut. When you stand up on a rebuttal, you know you're rebutting on something that is factual.
Yeah, but now can you talk about the time after high school, when you took a gap year? Maybe to figure things out, but was that also the period when you decided what you want to do? Or was I think it was just a pause for you and then you continue, with your journey professionally?
I got very good grades, good results from 5. And I got overwhelmed because I could do just about anything. And eventually when I applied at universities, all the universities that I applied in accepted me. So then it became a moment where I needed to take a break, reflect, and ground myself and understand exactly what it is that I want and what it is that I was passionate about. Remember when I said architecture was always the end goal? The grades would say, yeah, of course you can go ahead and do architecture, but then I got very good grades in my languages and my history, and I thought, no man, I could do something with this. So it was at that time then I decided, no, let me just take a break, consult. I was even seeing a counselor at that time. Took that time to ask around, and by some chance someone mentioned Eswatini Christian Medical University. I went there, got the prospectus, and I found so I was like, that's the thing.
Really?
It literally on that I applied. When I got my acceptance letters, collected my acceptance letters from every other institution that I'd applied at, I just kept it.
Just family accepting the path you've chosen to go for as a young person. For you, Begunjani, how was your family? Now to psychology, maybe by that time, or even now, I've seen for to your family, I'm going to study psychology. They'll give you how was it for you at that time with your family?
I remember how my mother wanted me to do something in engineering. I think I'd also planted the seed with the architecture. So she was warmed up to that idea. But then fortunately now, I'm the third psychologist in the family.
Oh, wow.
So there was already an aunt who had already started her studies in psychology. So I also went and I asked her, how are you finding your studies? And to my surprise, she said, no, when you'll do anthropology, you'd thrive in anthropology. And I said, oh, maybe let's see. Let's see how it goes. Yeah. I went, it was not easy because it was a fairly new concept. And of course, my mother feared that with the job market being what it was, are you going to be able to find your place? Are you going to be able to get a job? And I think that was just the concerns that she had. Otherwise, she warmed up to the idea, and now she's 120% behind the decision.
And then can we just talk about, the degrees, the degree that you have, and of course the idea of you currently pursuing, furthering your education,
yes.
The importance of continuous education, and of course, with psychology we can never spot ukuthi njengalamanye ama-industries ngiyabhekisa technology siyade ukuthi things are advancing. That's why you need to continuously learn. With psychology, why do you feel like there's always a need to better equip yourself?
Psychology is a science, and science is constantly evolving. Scientific principles need to be tested out, they need to be validated, and when you look at the foundation of psychology, how it started in terms of ethical development and all of that, you realize that there's always a need for constant development within the field. But then my studies, I'm furthering my studies in sociology. Fell in love with sociology at the same time that I fell in love with psychology.
Okay.
I remember how also my studies had a deep connection to my family as well. My undergrad thesis was deeply rooted in my grandmother's lived experience as a widow who was persecuted for not wearing mourning gowns. Hence, the subject of my thesis was, remember how we were all looking forward to Vision 2022, yes. First World Status. So the subject of my thesis was an assessment of the cultural practice of women wearing mourning gowns with regards to attaining Vision 20. How relevant was it? Yeah. And it's a very deeply personal piece of writing that I have. I love it and I defend it to the death because it connects me to my grandmother in such a big way. And I suppose in some sort of way it is that triggered my activism, I put it like that. One of our lecturers said that if your studies in psychology do not trigger any sort of activism, then they failed you. Yeah. Because activism for us comes in mental health advocacy, in finding ways in which we can infuse psychological principles in corporate settings, as I'm doing with Lucido Wellness and Counseling.
All right. Yes. We will take a short ad break. When we return, we talk about your role at the Psychology Association. Of course, serving as the deputy president of the SRC. That's where the activism, crept in, but that is only when we return.
All right.
Welcome back from our commercial break. If you just tuned in, today we are joined by Nokunceda, who is, of course, a psychologist. And now getting into the topic of leadership. Having led at the Psychology Association, how did this leadership role just deepen your understanding of mental health and, of course, just make you want to pursue even more?
All right. So I became president of the Psychology Association for 2 times. That's 2 academic years. Okay. And soon after that, I became deputy president of the SRC. But in those roles, especially within presidency of Psychology Association, one of the mandates that we had was how dispel myths and just unfounded rumors around discipline of psychology. Because remember, our university was the first of its kind to offer psychology at degree level. So around the community of campus, there was a lot of misconceptions about what psychology was about. So we did a lot of bake sales and would spark conversations around what psychology is to you. A lot of people would think, psychologist, so you're going to read my mind.
Yeah.
Also, if I'm lying, you can tell. and it was up to us to then say, no, guys, psychology is not some telepathic power that we have. We definitely cannot tell when people are lying all the time. I mean, we get lied every day. So it's an interesting journey towards. It was an interesting journey towards mental health advocacy and trying to get the correct and accurate information about psychology out there from because it starts at home. Charity begins at home. So we started there and then we grew out and we hosted 2 major events, 2 mental health days, and there was a World AIDS Day commemoration that was in partnership with SNAP and Ministry of Health. So it was our way of saying hamba vangeli le psychology from the association to the rest of the community and by some extension to the rest of the country.
Yeah. And in 2021, you described a very challenging time for you in your job search where you were just knocking and no one was opening that door. And I feel like for most of Eswatini, that is what we face, unemployment rate rather, is one that is very, very high.
Yes.
Can you just describe that time for me and how much of a challenge it was to you?
For someone who was an A student all her life, someone was just not used to failure, not accustomed to the idea of failure, it really hit me. It hit me hard. And even before graduating, actually back even at varsity level, I think it would be really remiss of me to abandon so high suicide rates at tertiary institutions. We already have over 10 confirmed cases of suicides across the different high learning institutions. And we've got countless others of unsuccessful suicide attempts that we don't know about. And it raises the question of when we tell our young sisters and our young cousins to say, a Christian university is admitting, here are the prospectus. University, Nazarene University, for example, is doing this. Go and get the prospectus. Are we in a way signing their certificates as well? Because the harsh realities of life in varsity hit you hard when you are in there. And I suppose this is now the time to start conversations around how to build resilience, emotional resilience for students. If possible, it could start even at lower high school level, so that these conversations get started early and people get accustomed to what is to come and they better prepare themselves. But back to the question that you raised about the job search. It was the most difficult time of my life. I sank into a very deep depression that I never ever in my life. I'm high frequency resonating person. I very hyper, out there, extrovert, but it changed me in a way that I didn't realize I could ever be like that. And it was at that time that my family stepped in and said, we appreciate what you're going through. We see how hard it is for you. Maybe give us something. How can we help you? If we give you an outlet. So that's when I started baking and I started cooking, and I started a cooking business that thrived, and it helped me to refocus my energy in my time from not sending out I took a break even from sending out job applications, because the rejection was just too loud. As much as it was silent, you wouldn't get a return text or email, but the rejection was just too loud. So I think sometimes it's important to block out the outside noise and find something that grounds you and that helps you get purpose at whatever time that is.
I love that, passion really helped you during that time. And on the bright side, you did stumble across the block, you know, and
Yes.
now you have a beautiful success story. Can we just talk about the vision that drove you to start Lucido Wellness and Counseling, and what you were hoping to achieve? Because the beginning is very scary. The beginning of everything is very scary, especially maybe you had questions like who's gonna come, who will I be servicing, how was it for you, and the vision that led you to start Lucido, most importantly.
Lucido came out of necessity. It was necessary for me to go back to my first love.
Yeah.
It was necessary for me to align with what I originally was passionate about. Because sometimes we measure success based on monetary returns. I was getting substantial amount of money from the cooking. I was able to maintain a lifestyle, but it was not in alignment with my passions. So Lucido also came from a place of necessity in terms of looking at the job market. I realized that if I were to wait for the perfect job opportunity, I never would have gotten a chance to have the impact that I wanted to have originally. Because if I waited to get the job, I probably would not have made so much strides that I've made already so far with Lucido. At first, it was supposed to start off as a practice, just to see, test out waters, get a few clients here and there. And as the months went by, I decided to change it into a consultancy so that it provides healing and wellness in a holistic manner. Also, I struggled with the name. What am I going to name it? And then I drew for my name. My mother named me with purpose. When she named Nokunceda, she knew exactly what she wanted me to be, an active member of the community who will give back and help other people. So I try to find a name that will resonate with the Swati population, because Nceda is a closer name. So yeah, so I had to find something that spoke to the Swati population, and Lucido came about, and we're making beautiful strides. We're very happy with the progress. Of course, there's always room for growth, but yeah.
And now, you know, we're talking all smiles, but when we draw it back to some of the organizations here in the Kingdom of Eswatini and some that you've worked with, what have you observed when it comes to health challenges in high-pressure work environments?
The number one issues that we come across with people who work in high-pressure environment is burnout. There is... People are high-functioning, but they're emotionally depleted. The environment that they work in, it prioritizes results, prioritizes profits, and it says, these are your deliverables. You should deliver on them on such and such a time. So if that is the goal, that's the end goal for them, it creates an environment where people are silent with their mental health challenges. And there's a lot of workplace bullying that happens. And I suppose it comes from the fact that without an outlet for these emotional pressures and turmoil, you then, for example, if you're someone in a leadership position, you find the lowest hanging fruit, which are your subordinates, and then you start bullying them, and it becomes a very toxic work environment. And now we have to find, so what we do at Lucido is to advocate for the rights of workers in terms of their health and their wellness, as well as trying to come out with policies that address the issue of wellness, so that the work environment can be a beautiful and productive environment that allows people to thrive.
All right. And, you know, this one, the next question, I think, touches on so many people, especially Laneka Eswatini. In many community, you know, mental wellness is still a stigma, you know, especially bangakubona ushobela nje uvusini le psychologist sonetinkinga ini but how do you plan to work on changing such you know, perceptions of the nature of you know, psychology and mental wellness, especially amongst the youth and in the workplace?
Stigma comes from a place of not being informed, of not being educated.
Yeah.
So to combat that, we bring forth a lot of education, whether it's in workshops,
Yeah.
whether it's in boardroom meetings, we advocate for wellness policies for staff members of different corporate organizations that we work in, whether it's in conducting wellness days, whether it is having team building sessions. We try to get the information out there so that you combat stigma with education and all. So we also try to open up conversations around things. For example, there's a headline that I remember this one time. There was a lot of debate around a case where a young mother killed her newborn. And that was an opportunity for us to come in and talk about, hey, there's something called postpartum depression, and this is how it manifests. And so we try to look for opportunities to bring out education in societally relevant issues.
And now, can we speak to Babgele Makaya, the youth, the ones who are, just grabbing a little bit of inspiration from your story, from your challenges. You didn't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Now you pursued your degree, but went into cooking business. What advice would you have for someone with a similar situation, coming from, the outskirts of Eswatini, being in a place where we need to be enlightened? Because lo munye akayati psychology ukuthi kahle kahle le psychology ngibacanga ukuthi nifunza tingqondo, like you said. What advice would you give to the young people of Eswatini who are just looking to maybe shift their path from mainstream, like being a nurse, being a teacher?
What helped me a lot was my curiosity. I never lost my sense of wonder. I was curious and I read a lot. But also what I think would work for most people is to take a break and reflect and align yourself with what you want. But before you can get to that point, you need to have a high level of self-awareness. So write that journal, have a journal, track your feelings, track your emotional resilience, know who you are so that you can better align your skill set with a career path that speaks to what you already have. But most importantly, don't be too hard on yourself. Literally go easy on you. It may seem like you are failing, but you're not. You're unfolding. A lot of the time when we measure success, when we talk about success, we fail to take into consideration the fact that what gives us success is greatly influenced by the material conditions on the ground at that particular point in time. What our parents could achieve in their 20s is something that we probably will have to achieve in our late 30s. That's the reality. The world that our parents lived in is so vastly evolved that what we live in today, it doesn't find expression with them. Our parents, it was easy for them to get out of university, be snatched up for a job, but with us the unemployment crisis is so glaring and it's so loud that it's so hard to ignore. So be kind to yourself, take into consideration the fact that you are exactly where you're supposed to be at this point in time, with everything else around you happening, material conditions and everything else on the ground. You're right where you're supposed to be, and don't be too hard on yourself.
But thank you so much, Nokunceda, for joining us here on Young Climber. I hope this story was of benefit to a young Liswati out there looking to, branch into the psychological field. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, Babugele Makaya, that was Nokunceda Myeni, who is, of course, a psychologist. Just talking about continuous learning and don't be too hard on yourself. Those are the words that I'm leaving you with tonight. But until next time, it is good night and God bless.